I'm Erik Storesund, and this is Brute North.
On most days, I'm more likely to be seen carousing with my subterranean friends and paying lip service to the Thursian mafia, but despite my apparently catatonic demeanor, even I must, on occasion, look to the skies and at the very least acknowledge that the sun exists. Many of my ancestors did the same thing, and in a country where the sun doesn't exactly overstay its welcome, it was considered common courtesy to at least say hello when it finally showed up. And I reckon that that's as good a reason as any for some low-effort content for you assholes. Ah, sun feasts. Hail. So today is new moon. It's the first day in the Norse lunar month of Goi. In Scandinavia, where I'm from, there's a huge difference in how much daylight you get between the winter and summer halves of the year. The further north you go, the shorter the winter days until the sun barely goes above the horizon at all. Norway is also a very mountainous country, so that means that some fjords and some valleys may not be getting any direct sunlight at all during the winter half of the year. Conversely, that means that in the summer half of the year, we get very long days, and in the Arctic, the sun doesn't really go below the horizon either. It just kind of goes like, and then comes back up, so you get the midnight sun. The 6th century Byzantine scholar Procopius states that the inhabitants of the land of Thule, far north, in some maybe semi-legendary location, possibly also in the Nordic area or Scandinavia somewhere, that they would experience a prolonged period of 35 days where they didn't have any sunlight at all, and that they would have a great feast to welcome the return of the sun when that finally happened, and that this was the biggest holiday among the people of Thule, he says. So, more subtle ceremonies of this kind has persisted in Norway until recently to mark the return of the sun. There's no universal date really for this, like it's not possible to say that this is necessarily like some people have done. They've tried to tie this to the Yuletide celebration, but there's not really any reason to do so. So instead it makes sense to rely on the sun's relation to your geographical location. For example, if you're living in the West Norwegian fjords, it makes sense to celebrate your Sunday at the point when the sun rises high enough that it comes over the mountain and shines down on your village or farm or whatever. So as you can imagine, this was a joyous occasion that was marked in different ways. For example, people might stop and take their hats off for the sun. Another common tradition is to put a lump of butter in the windowsill or a sun-facing wall, so that when the sun does arrive, it melts the butter. So sometimes people would petition the sun with a set phrase such as, "Sun, sun, give me summer butter. Here you get some winter butter." Or, "Now you must come every day and shine for us." Another sacred institution of the springtime is the Norwegian utepils, literally the outside beer. There's nothing Norwegians love more than drinking outside. This sort of do ut des ritual, as I give that you may give, is sometimes expressed to be a kind of bait for the sun. So you're coaxing it to come back with the promise of more butter, basically, so that it, of course, will increase the bounty and yield of the farm. And this is an interesting quirk of Western Scandinavian climate, namely that the droughts historically were not really a big problem. Quite oppositely, actually. It's excessive rainfall and cold weather that poses the biggest threat to agriculture. Sometimes something I also addressed in my master's thesis, where I argued that the reason why the god of Thor is depicted as such a dangerous and unpredictable god in the primary sources is that he was associated with weather that was necessary but also posed a specific threat to the crops and to people's livelihoods more widely. I don't live in a part of the world right now where there's a very clear distinction between summer and winter in terms of the sun's position in the sky. I also live in a fairly flat part of the United States. So determining the Sunday, as it were, sort of has to be picked based on some arbitrary criterion. But this also happens in Norway. Sometimes this butter offering happens on St. John's night, more like around midsummer, or even on Christmas Eve. So two completely different parts of the year. Quite interestingly, on Rjukan, up in Telemark, you know where that heavy water plant was during World War II, well, the poor fuckers barely get any sun at all, even in summertime. So they've kind of canonized the Sunday to be like March 17th or so, which is right around the corner actually. So basically I think that the first day of the lunar month of Goi is as good as any in my case. After all, the sun is shining and the spring is in the air. A nice little opportunity for
Thanksgiving.
It's like Scandinavian Groundhog Day, and it's not boding well, I'm afraid. I'm just gonna have to rely on the forces that I can trust. What a mess. If you want something done properly, you better do it yourself, I guess. Well, to the creek troll it goes.